Well, where does this podcast find you, Diane?
You can find me mostly on LinkedIn. So Diane Johnson on LinkedIn. I have a small Instagram handle. It's called It Takes Guts. My email is also great, just Diane at gutsathletenutrition.com.
That's fantastic. Where in the world are you?
I am in High River, Alberta, Canada, which is about 30 minutes south of Calgary, if you know where Calgary is.
You know what? I wish I did. I do not. I do not. East Canada, West Canada. Where are we?
More west. Yeah, more west.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still cold.
Yeah, and it's starting to cool off here. It's definitely starting to feel like fall.
Okay, my question for you to start is how can athletes understand how their nutrition affects their performance?
That's a good question. Well, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years of doing is this, that most athletes don't understand that at all. And it's not something that, in my experience anyway, the young athletes and the student athletes into post-secondary that we've worked with haven't ever really had that perspective brought forward, that it can have a significant impact on their performance. So I think that's one of the first pieces of the conversation around nutrition that we have to sort of change their outlook on, is that there's actually a huge opportunity when we can get curious about nutrition and start looking at things, especially if it's something that you've never really looked at before, right? It's like the door is just kind of closed and we don't even know what's on the other side until we sort of take that first step through. So, I mean, the conversation around nutrition can get very complicated. Like there's lots of science and lots of data and research and all this stuff. But I think where most athletes start, it's just like, it's not talked about. If it is, they might get a meal plan or a recipe guide, or they're told to, eat your macros. But most of the athletes I talk to can't even list off for me a few carbohydrates when I ask them what those are. Right. So there's just like this gap. They're like, we're telling them to do all these things, but they don't understand. And they've never really had that door opened, and they've never had the opportunity to see what the actual opportunity is. Right. So I think that's kind of where we often start. It's just like, let's just open the door a crack and see what's inside.
You mentioned in the survey I sent before about re-educating athletes.
Mm.
Where did we go wrong? Where did the information get lost that athletes need to be re-educated on how to eat, and how to eat to not only feel good, but to eat to perform better and recover better?
Well, a lot of the athletes it's often, and this is just kind of I think a product of or a byproduct of the world that we live in right now, right? Is everything's fast. We want the quick fix. We want it to be easy because we don't have time to really dive into things. And athletes' plates are certainly full, so to speak. So the re-education is just also like kind of understanding that, if we dialed it back like way long time ago, our ancestors, they weren't eating a lot of the things that we eat, right? It was coming from the earth. It was coming from the animals. It wasn't coming in a box or a package. It didn't have all these fancy colors and words that you can't pronounce added into things. It was just like natural food coming from the earth. And that doesn't really fit into that kind of quick fix mentality. I want to get stronger faster. Well, okay, so let's get more protein in. Well, okay, what supplement should I use? Like that's usually the process, the mind where people go. And I'm like, well, can we bring it back to whole foods first? And certainly there's many variables to that, right? With, where athletes are living, what their family's financial status is, like all lots of things. But I think these are all like the problems or the challenges that we get to walk through when we start to look at nutrition. So re-education for us when we work with student athletes is really like changing the way that most of what they see is take this, cut that out. Here's the supplement for this, take this energy, mass gainer, burner, all the things. And I'm just like, can we just bring it back to the food that's really going to help you flourish, that helped our ancestors flourish. So we look at things a lot of different. Athletes always have great questions about all the supplements and the things that they are curious about. We love that when they come to the table with those questions.
It's so interesting. Like when I think back at college, I played college baseball, professional baseball, Olympic baseball. It wasn't as bad later on in my career, but early on, you'd see huge tubs of whey protein and scoops, and people would just chug it down. And it was like, oh, I just need my protein. And it would never occur to us what kind of protein. And we didn't have the luxury to go eat well because we weren't being paid well or paid at all. What can athletes do today? What can athletes do to understand how diet and nutrition affect their performance and recovery right now? And what are those common areas of mistake, but easy areas of improvement that they can make?
Well, the first thing that we always talk about, whether it's, if we're working one-on-one with someone or if it's a program or club, whatever, is that we try to establish a mindset of curiosity. So before we even dive into the protein and the carbs and the foods and all the things, it's just how are we thinking about this? Because even when you were talking about what you just said about something about doing it bad, doing bad before I was right. There's a lot of judgment around how we're feeding ourselves, what we're choosing, why we're choosing it, why we're not. And that can either again open the door for us or close it right in our face. And so before we actually start talking about all the food things, we talk about how we're gonna step into this space, and that's just being curious. And I think one of the things that comes with that, or that athletes have shared with us, is that they start to actually get curious about how they feel, right? So they're in a practice or they're at the gym and they're just slugging, they're just so tired. And all of a sudden, the light bulb goes on and they're like, oh, I'm really not feeling that great today. I wonder what I ate the day before. Getting them to think about, to just be asking more questions instead of judging things in the moment. And that has proven really successful in getting them to look at different options. So if they're really feeling tired and their muscles are really sore and they're not recovering quickly, then they start getting curious about, well, maybe I do need more protein, and how can I find that? And then, the brain's wired to answer questions, right? So they start sort of almost themselves on a path of discovery in this space. And then we provide lots of, resources, ideas. Here's where you could get some more good quality protein that could fit easily into your schedule. And certainly not to shame supplements, right? They are, especially for athletes, a very useful tool. I think it's just important that they're understood that, that they're a supplement, and that athletes have the opportunity to develop strategies that, that they can use as the foundation, and then the supplement is there to really assist with that. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Most of the food conversations, the real strategy stuff, comes after we establish, let's get super curious about how we even feel, what we even do on a regular day, because most of us don't know. We don't pay attention to it.
What is the biggest misconception that athletes carry, even parents and coaches, about this topic?
I think one of the biggest things that we kind of help athletes get clearer on is just how high their energy demands are. I think most of the athletes we connect with have a belief that eating less is better because it means they're going to be leaner, and that means they're going to perform better. Generally speaking, when we have the opportunity to work through this and actually help them understand what their energy needs are, if I ask the group, how many, is that surprising to you? All the hands are up. So they don't really fully understand just how high those energy requirements are. And then, so that would be a misconception, is that less is better. And in this space, they're growing, they're changing, they have high demands, their body's under stress. The not just the energy, the calories, but the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the enzymes, cofactors, all that come from the food are often missing, and they don't often understand that. So that's when we actually show them, like, this is what your body actually needs to thrive, like to feel good, and then you're going to play good. There's always a lot of like big eyeballs in the room and just like, oh wow. But the coolest thing is they'll say after, they're like, wow, like I just feel more free to eat now. And then we spur into more conversations around, okay, so how do we get the best quality stuff? And it kind of goes from there. Once they understand, they get to eat and like fuel their body.
It's so funny. My fiance's in medical school, and I told her the other day, it just never occurred to me when I played that what you ate affected how you felt. And jokingly, I said to her, I had a piece of pizza before I played and I felt terrible. And then the next day, I had something, something like a clean salad, like something that made me feel good. And I played and it felt much better. She's like, Jeremy, you had no idea? Like, that's like a common thing. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I know that now. But when I was playing, I didn't. How do we educate athletes? How do we prepare athletes to understand that what we put in our body can fuel them and make them feel good and make them perform better?
Oh, well, we try to get in touch with young athletes. Like, next week we're speaking at a skipping conference, and we have a group of like U10 athletes that we're going to talk to. And I'm so excited to just get them, again, curious about this, because, usually I don't know what it's like there, but here it's like, the Canada Food Guide comes out and you look at the rainbow and the plate is all divided up, but it's not really meaningful, right? They're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And they might go home and think about it for a couple days, but it's really as far as it goes. But sport, and as I'm sure you like, the lessons that come from sport are so amazing, and I think they just trickle into all aspects of our life. And this is one of them. So like, the door is open, like all of them, whether they're little or old, they all want to feel good and they all want to play their best. And so, just kind of getting them curious about food and making those correlations, helping them like you just said, like I ate this and I felt yucky and I didn't play good, and giving them time and space to actually reflect on that. And like, maybe there's journaling happening, and the coach, I think, is a big facilitator of this. Like, we love working with programs and coaches because they don't have to be the nutrition expert, but they can keep kind of the ball rolling, right? Keep the conversations going. And I know from my coaching experience, so often athletes would really get down, right? When you have a bad performance, there's a lot of the internal critic really comes out, they feel the pressure, and they don't feel good. And we've had athletes come back and be like, you know what, when I figured out what I could eat and it changed how I played, it took some of that pressure off, because it didn't mean that I sucked at it. It was just, I didn't have what I needed to play my best. And so I think there's, it's not just a one-off conversation. We really try to like stay engaged with the athletes and sort of help them develop this process of, it's a bit of trial and error. Everybody's different, right? I'm going to try this. And then I have the opportunity to step back and be like, oh yeah, like I had that and I played awesome. Okay, check, right? Like, okay, so we're building some strategies and helping them kind of develop that over the years, and it changes, right? Like what what you would do now is probably different than when you were 18, right? And so getting them, that they can kind of continue this process of exploration and learning through their whole career.
You wrote here, well, I asked, what is one question you hope I put on my list? And you said, how do you help student athletes and parents address the perceived time factor of nutrition? What does that mean?
It's funny that I wrote that, because that was a couple months ago now, right? And I'm just like engrossed in
Yeah.
this time, all the beliefs we have around time. I'm reading this book called 4,000 weeks. That's what it's called. Basically, like we're alive for 4,000 weeks on average. Like, it's not a lot of time, right? So I could totally ramble on about time. I'll try to stay concise, but that's probably the biggest challenge, that when I ask a student athlete or group of athletes, like, what really determines how you feel yourself, and parents, the answer is time. So I think too, just kind of in our world, in the nutrition space, you'll hear, if you listen, you're always going to hear people say how eating well is hard, it's time consuming, it's costly, I don't have time to eat. And so it really is like, if we're going to build a sustainable nutrition kind of lifestyle, then we have to look at time. Because if we're not willing to, it's like, what are our priorities really, right? Like, you're going to prioritize the things that are most important to you, and something's got to give, right? If there's no time to eat, well, maybe we can restructure things a little bit so that you can nourish your body. Because, I mean, what's the most important thing, right? You want to enjoy this life, you want to enjoy the game, all this stuff. So, we try to spend time chatting with athletes and parents too, especially for younger athletes, just about, like, time is going to play a major factor in this, especially if we continue to believe that it's super hard, right? Whereas if we can step back and sort of assess and maybe formulate our lifestyle priorities and just kind of look at that stuff, then we can create time. And it doesn't have to take hours and hours of meal prep and that kind of thing. Like, it really doesn't. I think that is a belief that is very prominent, but there's so many little simple things we can do to just add in good quality stuff into our day that doesn't have to take you hours in the kitchen, right? When time is tight. And for most athletes and families, they're busy. I get it. So, yeah, I would say just, like, looking at your beliefs around time is a big piece of this. Right? Does it have to be hard? Does it have to take hours? No. But if you believe it does, then it always will.
To wrap up, what are some key tangible items, action items, key takeaways that, if an athlete, parent, or coach are listening right now, that they can implement right now, that they can implement it in tonight's practice or before the next game?
Yeah, love that. So for any coaches and athletes especially, pre-practice snack. So, like, when I'm coaching my teams, that is just built into our pre-competition, pre-practice routine. And that's addressed at a parent meeting at the beginning of the season. And it's, and I've got snacks in my bag for the kids that maybe forgot or can't afford it or whatever, right? But we do that as a team. So then it gets to be easy too, because we're not doing it by ourselves. But a piece of fruit, a granola bar, a carbohydrate rich snack before they play will absolutely make the practice or competition better. Especially if it's like an after school practice, right? Kids have been in school or like university all day, and then they go to practice and they don't eat. So if we can get them fueling right before, that's a massive game changer. And then for most young athletes too, it's just eating a little bit more frequently in the day, because they'll be in that time trap and they're like, well, I don't have time. So finding little pockets of time to have a snack, to drink more water, those, again, by the end of the day, when you're having to perform, if you haven't done that, your energy tank is going to be empty. So those would be probably two, like, simple things, whether it's the coach or the parent or the athlete, that they could work on snacking in the day, and then making sure they have a pre-practice, pre-training snack.
My advice is eat what makes you feel good.
Oh,
That I learned over years and years. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have a bowl of ice cream tonight because I earned it, and it's gonna make me feel good, and I'm gonna be fine. Like,
we can't take
it's okay.
We can't take enjoyment out of the food equation. I think that's one thing too. Athletes, they're like, well, if I do this, if I'm going to step into nutrition, then I have to cut this out. And that's not the case. We love to look at ways to add good stuff in. But if we didn't enjoy food, we wouldn't have evolved as a human species. Like, it's like in our DNA. That's something that's helped us seek out food that we need. So yeah, absolutely, we get to enjoy the food.
And as soon as that clicked for me, that made all the difference.
Yeah.
It was like, if I eat this, I'm going to feel good. And if I feel good, I'm going to play good. And that was the trade-off that I needed to make, and paid off.
Yeah, totally. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. This was a ton of fun.